So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us today on this beautiful Wednesday. And welcome to the third lecture of the 2020-2021 Mandelbaum Family Lecture Series with Mor Shilon at the San Diego Center for Jewish Culture at the Lawrence Family JCC Jacobs Family Campus. I am Lauren Lidke, the program coordinator for JLearn, which is the Adult Jewish Education Department here at the JCC. We are so excited to have you all here with us today, supporting this significant series and our community. This is, of course, a very different but such a beautiful opportunity to welcome our community members and speakers from near and far in a way that hasn't been possible before. So we are so grateful for this opportunity and this, opportunity to bring a silver lining to a otherwise very difficult situation. I would like to take this opportunity also to thank the incredible underwriters who make this series possible, Mercy and Ron Mandelbaum. Additionally, I would like to thank the underwriters of our JLearn department and the San Diego Center for Jewish Culture. So before we get started today, as always, I just like to mention a couple logistical pieces for the presentation. If you do have your camera on, that is awesome, and it's so wonderful to see you. Just please be aware that we can all see you in Zoom. And then also we will have about 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A at the end of the lecture. So if you do have any questions, please be sure to write them down or keep them, and we will absolutely get to them at the end of the lecture after Dr. Shilon is finished with her presentation. And that can be done either through chat or via the unmute button. So now I'm very pleased to introduce Mor Shilon. Dr. Mor Shilon is a visiting professor from Israel, funded to teach at UC San Diego by the Murray Gallinson San Diego Israel Initiative, whose mission is to bring Israel studies to San Diego's universities and our community through academic discourse, as well as to build collaborations and relationships between students and professors in San Diego and Israel. Mor received her PhD in urban planning from the Department of Urban and Regional Planning at Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology. With many years of teaching, fellowships, and published papers under her belt, she is now an adjunct professor with Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology, with research interests in urban planning, policymaking, technology and innovation, infrastructure, globalization, and complex urban environments. And that's just to name a few. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Mor Shilon. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for this amazing introduction. I will start by sharing my screen and then start talking. Just a minute. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, I would just tell you a bit about myself. I'm indeed a sociologist and an urban planner. I received my PhD, as Lauren said, from the Technion, and I got this amazing opportunity to come to San Diego with MGSDII, which sponsors Israeli professors to come to San Diego and actually teach in local universities about modern Israel. So that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm teaching courses about Israel, and even as part of the course I taught last semester, I provided this lecture for my students as well, because they were really interested with the topic of academia community partnerships, which we'll discuss here. If any of you is interested in these lectures, so please tell me, and I will, of course, add you to the mailing list. So this is exactly the reason I'm here, to present what we do in Israeli academia and how it relates to San Diego academia, but also to the general public and community. So I want to thank the MGSDII for this opportunity and tell you that this project that I will discuss in a minute is a collaboration of me with Rachel Kalush at the Technion, Professor Rachel Kalush, and Nicola Dell at Cornell Tech. So let's start. First of all, I would like to tell you a bit about Jisr az-Zarqa. It's not easy to pronounce the name of the city, but it's also a quite marginalized place, which even Israelis not really familiar with. So it's an Arab town located at the northern Mediterranean coast, north of Caesarea, which I guess most of you do know, within the Haifa district. It achieved a local council status in 1963. It has about 15,000 residents nowadays, and the residents are primarily Muslim, Arab Muslims. And you can already see from this picture here that many of the houses in Jisr az-Zarqa are not completed. So you can see it's like pure concrete and they are not fully built. And I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but the reason for that is that the Israeli law actually can be enforced against illegal housing only when the house is completely built, meaning houses like these cannot be fined or whatever regulation you enforce, but cannot be fined or demolished because they are not considered to be completed, so they are not being illegal yet. So we already have, by this picture, quite a hint on the situation in Jisr az-Zarqa and the reason for us to choose this place to work in. Okay, so just a bit more about Jisr. Jisr is located in the Haifa district. This is Haifa, this is Jisr. It's right on the beach. This is the only Arab town in Israel which is located on the Mediterranean. And this is actually an amazing place with a lot of potential. We will see more pictures soon. But it's not only located next to Haifa, which is a huge mixed city in Israel, it's also located next to Nazareth, which I'm not sure if you know or not, but Nazareth is quite a cultural center for Israeli Arabs, but also for other people coming from all over the world to see it. So it's quite located in the center of different needs, of different resources. It's also not that far from Tel Aviv. It's like less than an hour drive from Tel Aviv, which is also place it in quite a unique location. And again, having the beach next to it, the Mediterranean, is quite a potential. And still, Jisr az-Zarqa geographically is bounded by the Mediterranean on the west, Highway 2 on the east, Kibbutz Ma'agan Michael on the north, and Caesarea on the south, meaning it has no expansion capacity. And this is something which is very important for us, for this lecture and for our work, because we can see it here. We have the north of Jisr, the south of Jisr, the fishermen's village is here. But then we have, right on its border, fishermen's pools of Ma'agan Michael Kibbutz, Bet Hanania, which is another quite familiar kibbutz in Israel, and then Caesarea, right here. And interestingly, Caesarea placed a dirt wall between its locality and Jisr, claiming that Jisr az-Zarqa makes a lot of noise and problems to the community in Caesarea, and they did it by themselves privately, building this wall and actually putting a physical barrier, not only like conceptual barrier to Jisr az-Zarqa. And then here on the east, we have Highway 2. Highway 2 is one of the biggest highways in Israel. It actually brings people from the center, from the south to the north of Israel. It's quite packed and it cannot be, of course, moved or removed. So the entrance to Jisr az-Zarqa, the actual entrance, is under the highway. It's a one-way entrance, so people have to wait in both sides in order to enter or to exit Jisr, and it's not a very welcoming entrance. Socially, Jisr has the highest high school dropout rates in the country. Monthly wage is the lowest, with women being the main workforce. 80% of the residents live below the poverty line. So the conditions in Jisr az-Zarqa are quite complex. It's a very traditional community. It has a lot of women are going outside to work, with men staying home, sitting in coffee places. Kids are being kind of neglected in many of these households, and it's quite a complex situation to deal with. And culturally, and this is also very important, the residents are Arabs, meaning they speak in Israeli discourse, at least when we say Arabs, we refer to the Arabic speaking populations living in Israel. So of course, Jisr is within the Green Line, as you saw, it's very close to the Mediterranean, and its residents are speaking Arabic. They're Israeli citizens, they're Muslim, but, and this is a major disadvantage, they are not considered Palestinians, and they are not considered exactly Israeli Arabs. They're excluded both from the Israeli and the Palestinian societies. And the reason for that is that, first of all, Jisr's narrative, the Jasrawian, the way they call themselves, is a bit complex. Some said that their history is that 500 years ago, they arrived as slaves from Egypt to Israel, and they arrived in order to help with just like kind of construction work done in the area. And they are considered to be, you know, the status of the residents is lower than the Israeli Arabs. Not only that, their appearance is a bit different. They're a bit darker than other Israeli Arab communities we have. And then this situation makes them being deprived of any cultural or human capital. Meaning for Israeli Arabs populations in Israel, one of the strength, the biggest strength is having, you know, the family and the cultural ties and the social ties that with other Arab communities. But being excluded from both the Israeli society and the Arab society is positioning Jisr in quite a difficult place with having no social ties, no expansion capacity geographically, as I mentioned, and so on, but also the mere fact that they would not marry, or to put it on the other way, Israeli Arabs won't marry people from Jisr az-Zarqa. So it also placed them again in a difficult position when they need to marry one another, and they only 15,000 people there. So it's quite difficult. It has a lot of stereotypes about this place, about being very violent, very poor. So many of the Israelis and even Israeli Arab students I have in class would not visit Jisr. So I had last year, I had an Israeli Arab student who was afraid to enter Jisr az-Zarqa because she doesn't know the community and it has so many stereotypes. So this is just to give you the general picture of the life in Jisr az-Zarqa and the way the Israeli society understand them. Okay. Now, another aspect of the community which puts it even in a more complex position is that the town is comprised of discrete and often disputed sub-communities. In Arabic, we would say hamulas, and also in Hebrew, it's quite common term. Hamula is a family in Arabic, or clans, just to make it clear in English. Meaning there are two major families living in Jisr az-Zarqa, Amash and Jarban. These are the two families that actually comprise of the city of Jisr. And the problem is that, for example, when the Amash family controls the municipality, the local council of Jisr az-Zarqa, when the mayor is from one family, we can expect that the rest of the official positions in the local council would be regarded to the same family. So there are quite some conflicts between these families. Now, it's not like you would walk on the street and you will see a conflict in front of you. You will see, disputed people. You will see people who are fighting. It's not that. But when it comes to the important things of, having different people contributing or participating in the planning and the organizing and so on of the community, then there are clashes. So if, for example, if we would work as a campus, as the Technion students would work with one family exclusively, we are quite, it's likely that we will neglect completely the other family because they wouldn't work together. So this is the meaning of disputed sub-communities. Albeit its discrete social structures, over the years, numerous initiatives have attempted to address the whole town, disregarding its disputed sub-communities. And this is another major issue. So Jisr az-Zarqa is considered to be quite a sexy place to work in. People want it because it's very authentic, it's underserved, poor people. This is something that academic community partnerships, or, you know, NGOs really like to work in. But the fact is that many of the initiatives that starts in Jisr az-Zarqa ends with no solution, with no impact. And 3 years ago, when we started this project, we started to look into these initiatives in order to try to figure what happened along the way. These were like amazing initiatives of the Rothschild Foundation, of NGOs, of the government, every private organizations and so on. But most of these initiatives were stopped in the middle or didn't have any actual influences on the village. And then we figured that most of these initiatives do not comprehend the sub-communities working in, living in Jisr az-Zarqa. And we thought this could be part of the problem. Then again, having a marginalized community, underserved, a lot of local challenges, it is centrally located and immersed in what we all perceive as a startup nation. And this is another important facet that we will connect to again later. So Jisr is located within the Haifa district, as said. It has Matam Haifa. Haifa has one of the biggest technological ecosystems in Israel. Startups, you know, high tech, 2 universities, a lot of hospitals. So it is quite well connected. It's 20 minutes drive from Haifa. It's not that far from Netanya, which also has technological centers, in Tel Aviv, Jaffa, and so on. So it has some potentials, some apparent potentials. Although it has a lot of local challenges, it does have some potentials as well. And that's what we started to figure when we went there in 2017. So the course is called Technology with Community, and I want to tell you a bit about the background for the course. First of all, to any of you who are not that familiar with urban planning, just to give you some background of urban planning as well, it often represents the state and its authorities in shaping the urban environment, meaning urban planning processes are very likely to work through top-down processes, through the authorities, local councils. It's a very regulative processes. These are very regulative processes which attempt to meet the people and their needs and desires, but still the top-down characterization of urban planning puts some limits to its success, especially in underserved communities. So when urban planning works towards or for the public, and even when participatory work is done, it's mostly done with that community or a community. So urban planning is not likely working top down to divide the community, to think about alternative ways to work with communities, because it's almost impossible. These are regulative, very structural processes known all over the world. And usually when they're done with a community. Even if they try to approach different facets of the community, it won't be totally regarded as sub-communities, for example, comprising a community. Now, planning scholars and practitioners actually acknowledge the fact that many communities are nowadays diversified, and they know that there's an urgent need to plan in a way which will acknowledge these sub-communities, but they would never target individual as possible sources of community empowerments. Meaning, even if as urban planners, we will conduct a public participation as part of our planning processes, we're likely to find representatives of the communities or different communities like women, men, religious, secular, and so on. But we always forget other parts of the communities. We don't look at all the communities and all the people, and it's quite difficult. One of the reasons for that is that we have to look on groups. We have to look on groups because we cannot work endlessly with more and more people. But we thought that in Jisr az-Zarqa, because it's really a disputed place, maybe instead of approaching first the local council or the representatives, we will look for people, just random residents who are interested with making a change. And maybe they would be able and, will be interested in working with us in order to have their own benefits for their own life course and needs, but also to think about how their work could benefit the community in general in Jisr az-Zarqa. So the course is an ongoing process. Again, it began on 2017 and last semester was just ending not so long ago. And it focuses, this is the rationale, it focuses on hands-on work carried out by joint teams of interdisciplinary students and residents from Jisr. Meaning, in every team, the course is given, for example, for a full semester. In Israel, it's 15 weeks. We have teams of interdisciplinary students working with residents from Jisr, but working with them completely. They meet them every 2 weeks. They plan the project together. They think of how they can conduct it, how they can imply it, and so on. So the residents are quite engaged with this course as well. And this is part of the objectives. Drawing on varied technology, the project aims to network Jisr az-Zarqa and to enable the community and its residents to fulfill their needs, desires, and economic, human, touristic potentials of the place as they perceive them. And this is another important rationale of the course. We want the residents to tell us what they think is a potential, what they think that the village need, what they think that they need as individuals, and how it can be advanced by working with our students. And we have in the course usually BM, AM, MA, and PhD students all together working from different faculties like urban planning, architecture, biomedical engineering, electrical engineering, computer sciences, civil engineering, landscape architecture, and even MBA. And all these students are working together with the residents in order to make their project fruitful. Okay, so again, what we want to do, this is just again a picture of Jisr az-Zarqa, a beautiful picture. This is the part between the village itself and the fisherman's village, which is a major part of the town. We'll discuss it soon. And the objective was to put marginal populations on the map by using technology to advance individuals and their initiatives, and through that, the whole community. So basically what we wanted to do is to try and bring technological capital to the residents, and with technology to overcome conceptual and physical borders. Meaning that if a person has an initiative, existing initiative in Jisr az-Zarqa, but he is lacking the capacities to advance this initiative. And as long as this initiative is relevant for the whole community of Jisr az-Zarqa or for the whole town, we want our students to help them gain technological capital to advance this initiative. And in a moment, we will see some examples. Okay. So another important objective of the course is to combine human-computer interaction for development, which is called HCI4D. Human-computer interaction for development is a huge field nowadays, very popular in computer sciences. And the idea is to probe into the needs and finding technological solutions for marginalized communities. However, this field of HCI4D is directed towards low resource settings. So for example, Nicole Adel, the professor I told you about at the beginning, working for Cornell, she does HCI4D and similar projects to the projects we did in Jisr in areas like slums in India or in Brazil, in the favelas, places where people have actually no access to technological means, to resources, basic or advanced. And the unique paradox of Jisr is that the town is deprived of several basic services, such as proper sanitation and garbage disposal, but almost all the people in Jisr az-Zarqa have access to the internet and to smartphone. So the town is very well networked by online means. And that's why we thought that using technology in order to overcome barriers might be a good solution to this, to the problems Jisr facing. At the beginning, when we thought of having, for example, better services of garbage disposal, we found it's quite difficult because, again, the disputed clans of Jisr are not working well together. So the municipality, if it doesn't feel like having good services of garbage disposals or sanitation, or if they don't want to have these services provided for all the town, then they won't have it. And then we went to the other way and said, okay, Let's talk to people. Let's see what they can do with the means they do have. And what do they have? And they do have a very well network of online means. They do have smartphones. They use the computer. Not all of them, not under any circumstances, but they do. They want to learn and they want to use technology in order to advance their initiatives. So we thought that our students, you know, the Technion is similar to MIT, it's a technological university. We thought that our students with their technological capital might help advance these initiatives. So the idea was to integrate research, pedagogy, and the community. The community, we all now know already why, because we wanted to work with an underserved community and see in which tools and concepts and ideas we can advance this town and help them achieve what they think is their needs or believe their needs or the desires and what they see as urgent things that need to be taken care of. The research is our part. We are scholars, all of us, we are academic scholars, and we wanted to study and to learn better what are the possible benefits of academia community partnerships, how it can be done in innovative ways, and what are the implications of these kinds of collaborations. And then pedagogy. Part of the issue was how can we teach students to actually work with communities? It's not easy. There are language barriers. Some of the residents of Jisr, az-Zarqa do not speak Hebrew. Of course, they don't speak English. Technological capital is quite low. When COVID started, we had to think of how to communicate with them if they don't know what Zoom is. And we wanted our students to know how they can approach people at traditional communities, how they can engage with them. You know, even the time frame, the time like understanding of how to schedule appointments is quite different between the West and marginalized communities, which understand time a bit differently. So we had to come up with these together in order to make this project successful. So we worked on the co-development, co-production, and co-evaluation. We engaged students with local residents in joint action teams, and we wanted to work with people instead for the community to generate new knowledge that renders socio-technological solutions. So you see some of the people of Jisr in here, the kids and the women. They're a great, great cooking tradition in Jisr az-Zarqa, and this was one of the opportunities we took in order to advance initiatives in the town. Let's see if I want to show you a short video we made of the course, so it will be even more apparent. Great.
So more, we're not able to see the.
Sorry?
We're not able to see the video. It's not showing up for.
Oh, I will do another shot. Just a minute.
No, that's okay.
Sorry for that, guys.
No problem.
Wait.
Perfect.
You can see it now?
Yep, that's great.
I will start from the beginning. Just a minute.
כפר ג'סר א-זרקא הוא הכפר הערבי היחידי שנשאר על חוף הים. אנחנו מונים כ-14,300 נפשות על שטח של 1,566 דונם. במקור קראו לנו שבט אל-גווארנה. אל-גווארנה זאת אומרת מגור, אל-בקעה. לפני 500 שנים הגענו מבקעת הירדן. המיקום שלהם היה על כל הסכר של חוף כרמל. ואחרי קום המדינה סידרו את ישבותם במקום שאנחנו נמצאים כאן. הקורס טכנולוגיה עם הקהילה הוא קורס שנערך בעצם פעם ראשונה בטכניון, והמטרה שלו היא להנגיש הון טכנולוגי לתושבי ג'יסר א-זרקא באמצעות עבודת שטח מקצועית שנעשית עם התושבים. תהליך העבודה התחיל במפגש היכרות שבו נחשפנו לחוזקות ולאתגרים שהם הציגו, וכך התחלקנו לקבוצות עבודה.
הציפייה היא בעצם שעד סוף הסמסטר שהסטודנטים יגיעו לכפר ויפגשו אתכם פעם בשבועיים. כמובן שגם מהצד שלכם צריכה להיות מחויבות לפגוש אותם.
אני חושב שזה יעזור לשנות את התדמית של הכפר, וגם לעזור לאנשים להכיר יותר טוב את הכפר יותר לעומק.
טכנולוגיה בעצם, זה במובן מסוים מין אנטי-אדריכלות, זה אנטי-מקום. דווקא יש לזה הזדמנות ללכת מעבר לכל הסוגיות הקשות של תכנון.
אנשים מתלהבים מהפרויקט הזה, מהקורס הזה, מעצם היותנו פה.
כי זה כפר שאם אתה מסתובב בו, אתה רואה הרבה ילדים שאומרים לך שלום, ובאים ולוחצים יד ומקבלים את האחר.
רק מחכים להתחיל כבר ולקדם את הדברים.
הסטודנטים והתושבים עבדו במהלך הסמסטר בצוותים משותפים, שנפגשו אחת לשבועיים, ובמפגשים האלה הם פיתחו רעיונות לפרויקטים שמטרתם הייתה לאפשר ליישוב ולתושבים שלו לממש את הפוטנציאל הכלכלי, האנושי והתיירותי של המקום.
כשמנסים לאבד את הזהות שלך, אז אתה תדאג לתעד ממש ההיסטוריה שלך ותתעד את הסיפור האמיתי שלך. תיעוד של הסיפורים שלנו, זה רק בשביל לשמור על הזהות שלנו. כאילו, התחושה זו באה של אנשים שמרגישים שאחרים מנסים לעוות את הזהות שלהם. אתה מבין? לשנות את הסיפור שלהם. להביא להם סיפור ולשים אותו בפה, וזה הסיפור שלך. אתה מבין? זה ככה.
אחרי פגישה אחת עם סיידה, מיד הבנו שזה חומר שפוגע בדיוק בנקודה שרצינו לייצר בפרויקט הזה. על חוף הים הזה עובר שביל ישראל, ממש פה על כפר הדייגים של ג'יסר az-Zarqa, ואנשים פשוט מפספסים את זה, כאילו עוברים ליד ולא מודעים לאוצרות הבאמת טבעיים ומדלגים עליהם, וחבל. אם יעשו את הצעד הזה, אז אחרי זה עוד 200 מטר כבר לתוך הכפר, ומשם זה להגיע לעסקים, זה לשבת בבתי קפה, זה פשוט לפתוח את המקום הזה, את באמת, כמו שקוראים לג'יסר, וג'יסר עצמה פנינה פה על החוף.
כדי לתת תוקף תיאורטי ואקדמי לעבודה בשטח, נערך בטכניון יום עיון, שבאמצעותו רצינו לעמוד על החשיבות של הנגשת הון טכנולוגי לקהילות מוחלשות.
The students here are drawn from a wide variety of different disciplines, and it's really great to see how they all work together and learning to speak the same language. It's wonderful to see how they're engaging with some of the social and human aspects of working with the communities, which is really complementing their engineering education and the technical and theoretical background that they've been learning in their courses with the more applied and practical hands-on skills that this course has been teaching them.
Maybe the people of Jisr are not expecting that you ask them what they need. Maybe the fact of bringing them something and then looking with them what it makes them, how it transforms.
We took the information, then we came back to Adili and we told her, okay, you gave us this and we want to make it this. What do you think about it? Is it okay with you?
יש כל כך הרבה מורכבויות בעבודה הזאת ובעבודה ספציפית עם ג'יסר. אני חושבת שהתפקיד שלנו פה היה להתחיל את הקשר הזה, להתחיל את החיבור הזה ואת התהליך הזה שהוא באמת ארוך, לפעמים מייגע ולפעמים נכווים ממנו ויש בו קשיים, אבל אני חושבת שהכלים שרכשתי פה באיך לגשת לקהילה ואיך לדבר עם אנשים ולעבוד איתם, זה היה הדבר הכי חשוב בעיניי.
Just a minute. Yeah, okay. So this was our movie. It was done in the first year of the course. I wanted to show it to you because I wanted, wait, I cannot sing too. Yes. Wait, where's the presentation? Yeah. Sorry for that. Because I did want you not only to experience Jisr via my words, but also to see it, to see what we did at the Technion, to see the residents, to see the students, and to see the place, just to experience it a bit more visually and to see what we're talking about. So part of our project,
Sorry, will you bring your presentation back up? We're not able to see it.
How come? I thought it wasn't you, sure. Wait.
It's technology, it's okay.
Just
It's finicky.
Okay, sorry.
There we go, perfect.
So part of our project, so again, every year we had like between 3 to 5 teams of students and residents working together. And we picked residents, again, that they have initiatives. A good example for an initiative, what I'm keep on saying, is 2 women who were around their 50s having collected many of artifacts from their great parents, from other generations, from other people and families around the town. And they really wanted, when we approached them, because we were told about their collection, they said, listen, we want to make a museum for Jisr az-Zarqa. This is our goal, but we don't have expansion capacity. We don't have the physical place to put a museum. We don't have anywhere to put it. We don't have the money to create a museum. So how can we preserve our legacy? So what our students brought is the technological means in order to create an online museum. So we created a website, and in this website, we created an online museum, which is accessible to everyone who has internet. We have the museum in 3 languages. We brought a professional photographer to take pictures of these artifacts and then provide explanations by the residents in Arabic. And of course, we translated them to English and to Hebrew. So now people can be more engaged, not only, by the way, like outsiders like Israelis or international people, but also locals. They wanted their kids to be aware to these artifacts, to their history and narrative. And this museum was a great project, which still of course exists, and the residents can present their legacy via this website. So now I want to talk a bit about the innovative aspects of this work, of this project. So first of all, we targeted working with and not for people. And this is quite a slogan in urban planning. You want to work with people, you want to work with communities, but in actual planning processes, again, due to complexities related to the nature of top-down planning processes, it's quite difficult to work with people. You have no time, no money, and no resources to work with actual, residents going, especially in bigger towns, like, Tel Aviv is almost 500,000 residents. Can you work with individuals? It would be impossible. So this is something that luckily, because it's a kind of a small community, and we could approach people independently because we were not working as official planners from the state or the authority. We aimed working with the residents. And another aspect of that is that when planning tends to focus on the community, and we already know that the community is not an actual organic unit, it makes it difficult to create collaborations and mutual commitments. So if people feel that they are excluded from the planning process, it might be more difficult to approach them later on and to collaborate with them. So that's something we try to avoid, and I believe we quite succeed in it. Working with individuals. So how do you do it? So again, although planning literature do recognize the complexity of planning with communities, especially when the community is stratified or in conflict, working with individuals within these communities is not acknowledged in planning research and practice. Meaning planning as a profession and also as a scholarship has difficulty to see how work done with individuals can impact the whole community or the whole town. And this is something we wanted to achieve here. So we not only approached residents who have initiatives, but we thought from the outset, how can these initiatives, if and when advanced with technological tools by our students, will be relevant for the community as a whole? So will it bring more people to Jisr az-Zarqa? Will it bring more awareness to the situation there? And so on and so forth. A good example for that was a team of our students created a photo competition, international photo competition, and with like great judges, very known Israeli photographers. And when we had the first day of this competition presented in the gallery in Jisr az-Zarqa, we had almost 300 people coming from all around Israel, which have never been, people who have never been to Jisr before. So this was quite, so it was more of a local project by a person who was interested with photography in Jisr, but making it a public event, inviting people, having, you know, prizes for the first and second and third places in the competition and so on, made 300 people come to Jisr az-Zarqa and know the place and see it. So they also made a food market in this event and so on and so forth. So this was like quite an impressive event our students conducted. And this was done when from the outset, the work was done with an individual thinking about it and about the competition, but they made it, the student made it something which was publicly relevant. Through the joint work of planners and residents, local initiatives of individuals can gain momentum and in gradual process advance the whole community and locality. Now, there is a question which still remains: how can such planning or planning processes be promoted given the existing urban planning frameworks? So it's very important for students, for academia, and for the communities to do this kind of work. But the question is, how do you implement this kind of thinking in real life, in real urban planning processes, when you want to make an actual outline plan? This is a question we're still thinking of, contemplating of, and we try to figure what are the best way to present these processes to, you know, policymakers and to officials in order to make them more acceptable. And last, innovation is advancing local technological capital. And this is quite relevant to nowadays, to COVID times, which are quite complex to everyone, but especially to underserved communities or marginalized communities. So we know technology provides an opportunity to advance potentials of communities as their member understand it. We know technology can overcome barriers and borders. It's quite an accessible tool, not for everyone, but if you have the technological capital, you can use it. And we know that lack of a technological capital, when we need it the most, like in COVID times, may serve as a major social and economic barrier. So actually, in COVID times, having no technological capital only makes more barriers to these kind of underserved communities. But drawing on the technology, we were able to conduct placeless planning, meaning to overcome the barriers which are very bounded in physical spaces, in geographical spaces, and we were more able to address other barriers which are usually neglected in planning processes. So we saw part of the website. I'm not sure if we have time to see more, and I think this is the movie was quite like you know, engaging with what we did there. And yeah, and these are some of the projects of az-Zarqa Gallery. So students from last year, they conducted three women in Jisr az-Zarqa were making these initiatives of creating arts and crafts by themselves. More traditional arts and crafts, you can see it here. And their problem was that they couldn't advance it or marketing it. They didn't know how to do that. So what our student did is invited a smartphone photography workshop, knowing that the residents of Jisr won't have the best cameras, they won't have the money to pay for photographers. But if they could take pictures themselves of their creations, they might be able to sell it on Facebook and on other platforms. So that's what they did. So they taught these women how to, with a professional, how to take good photos of their creations. And then they taught them how to use a website like Etsy and how to use websites in which you can easily transfer small amounts of money in order to sell their goods. So this was one project. Another project by our students and residents was of, and this was especially to COVID times, we understood that many of the people in Jisr az-Zarqa do not know how to use the digital platforms, but also they do not know what are the benefits of using them. So they didn't feel they're missing anything. So for example, when we started the course last year, we wanted to use Zoom because we had no choice, but they said, why do we need Zoom? We don't need it. So we had first to find, you know, a good way to explain what are the benefits of using Zoom. Then we had to figure out how you can find Arabic explanations or to translate you know, the explanations, because if you think about it, most of the digital platforms we know are in English. So people who cannot speak or read or English, they are quite in a problem. And then we had to figure how to translate them into Arabic in order for the residents to understand how to use these platforms, and only then they could use it. And this was quite shocking because it was quite a success. The moment we were able to translate the ideas, the objective of these, and you see, these are most of the apps we all know, Zoom, and you have Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, of course, Google Drive, Waze, Bit for transferring money. Here it's called Venmo. So these are quite known applications, and the residents couldn't use them before. They didn't know about them or what are the benefits. So that's what they did in this project. And yeah, and I want you to have time to ask questions. So I will stop here, and please feel free to make a discussion or two.
Mor, thank you so much, not only for an incredible presentation and all the education around the city and your project, but also thank you for all the work that you are doing in that community. I think that is just incredible. And we do have a little bit of time for questions. So if you would like to, you can put them in the chat and I will relay them to Mor. And one of the questions that I had was, do you have plans to return? Obviously right now is a really difficult time, but do you have plans to return sometime in the near future or distant future, or what's kind of your plan to return to the community?
You mean to Jisr az-Zarqa, to work with Jisr? Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. We don't, and this is an important question. So thank you for that, Lauren, because you know, when you work with a community, you don't want to work only in a short-term manner. You don't want to come and leave. This is also something which is common in planning processes. You come, you do what you do, and then you go. And that's something we didn't want to do. And we knew I will be here during this year, and we thought about it in advance. So what we did is made some of these projects, you know, run to the in the long term, making the communication with the residents continuing. So for example, we invited the residents to this lecture. We wanted them to be part of it. We wanted them to know about it, that they're, you know, that the projects are being discussed around the world and so on. And we find a way to communicate with them. Of course, hopefully next year, either me or my collaborator, Professor Rachel Kalush, will teach this course again at the Technion, because we don't want to stop this collaboration. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So we have a few questions in the chat. So Anne asked, does the city have 2 school systems?
What do you mean? Sorry for that, but what do you mean by 2 school systems? Like separate for the families? That's what you, yeah. So no, they don't have 2 school systems. For kids, it's a bit easier to be, you know, so again, the disputation, like the conflict is arising mostly when it relates to regulation, to administrative bureaucracy and so on, or to political engagements, and less when you're young and when you play with kids. So you might not have a wedding, a huge wedding in which the whole community, the whole town is invited, but when you're kids at school, it doesn't have to be that complicated, as far as I know, at least. Yeah.
Great. And then Lee asked, is the population of Jisr increasing or decreasing?
It's increasing, quite strikingly increasing. It's similar to other Israeli Arab populations. Arab families are more traditional, tend to have more than 3-4 kids in a family, even if they lack the resources, the financial resources or economic resources for that. And don't forget that these people being underserved, and again, some of them cannot read or write in Hebrew. So they might speak a bit Hebrew, but not read and write. So just think about gaining like social assistance, right, from the state is something which is very complicated for them. And also there's the other side of traditional Arabic populations in Israel. They have the manner of ard, it's called in Arabic, so respect. It's quite embarrassing to say that you are in need. It's not something common. One of our teams of students, they thought, okay, it's a very, you know, poor place. Let's make like a second-hand shop for clothes, for bringing, you know, from students from the Technion, clothes and books and toys to the residents. But the residents told us we won't use it because it's too embarrassing for us. You cannot say, I'm poor, I'm in need, help me. So this is another issue. of the residents.
Interesting. And then Lou asked, with the technology centers surrounding the community, have you involved them or have you not? And if not, to involve them in this project, why haven't you, or have you in any way?
Sorry, which technological center? I might have missed that part.
So I guess since it is located between, with Jisr being between other technological hotspots, have you involved them at all in this project?
Yes, of course, we did. We involved projects like Muna, which is a project of educating young Arabic communities and engaging them with high-tech initiatives already from a young age. Of course, we discussed with high-tech entrepreneurs at the Technion and beyond. And we have like a team of consultants which help us in different projects. So of course it depends on the project. It's a good opportunity to mention that this course is funded by the Israeli Higher Education Council, and it has a funding for the work done with the communities. So we are also able to attract some entrepreneurs or professionals to help us with the initiatives.
Fantastic. And then we had a question again from Lee. It seems that the women of Jisr are more engaged with the initiatives. Do you agree? Is that a fair assumption?
Very true. Yeah, that's a very nice observation. It's true. So I don't know if it's woman power or women being more engaged with, social attributes, with, or the fact that they're actually being deprived of a lot of, strength and power that makes them want to do something for themselves or for the community. But it's true. It was much easier to engage women. Not in all cases. We have actually one partner who is a man who's collaborate with us for 3 years. This is the only resident who's like working with us for 3 years, but usually it would be women. Also, I think because more initiatives like NGOs initiatives target women because they are even more deprived of, resources, more than men. So yeah, that's true.
And then we did have another question from Lou that said, Israel has had such a history of population absorption from all the countries of the world who did not otherwise speak Hebrew. How come this is a problem with Arabic?
Sorry, what's the problem with Arabic? I might have...
And maybe Lou can expand on his question a little.
You absorbed millions of people that didn't speak Hebrew, that came with no education, and here you have a little village in a big place, and you're telling me that it's a difficult thing to get them to learn Hebrew or a common language that would absorb them to the community.
Yeah, well, it's true. They are deprived of many resources. So the state also has some problems with this place. It's not that easily accessible. They have some problems of trust with the state. The education system in Israel, I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but the education system in Israel is being funded by the municipalities, the local municipalities, and not by the state. And usually, like bigger and stronger municipalities like Tel Aviv municipality would have more funding for the education system. In Jisr az-Zarqa, part of the problem of the disputed conflictual communities is that the municipality doesn't spend enough on the schools. So the school and the education level is quite low. Of course, they teach Hebrew in schools because this is a compulsory, this is a must in Israeli, the regulation of Israeli education system. But still, if you would see the school and the way, the students look, and more than that, if you have a very poor place with no resources, so students sometimes don't. I went to the school. Not all the pupils attend school at all. Some of them are going with the parents to work. They come one day, yes, one day, so it's quite complicated. And then again, if you don't practice Hebrew, if it's not part of your life because you're so deprived of or excluded from populations, then you don't practice that. So okay, you learned Hebrew in school a bit for several years, and that's it. You don't use it anymore because you work within your village, or you sit, if you are a male or man, you would sit a lot in the coffee places with your own community. You are not engaging with other communities. So it's quite a problem. Again, it's not all of them. And when I'm saying that they don't speak or read Hebrew, it's usually would be people who are older, right? 40, 50-year-old, older generations, and not the young people. Of course, younger generations are, you know, like everywhere, they have more access with technology. So they use the internet and so on. So I agree on that. But when we discuss with residents, so older residents, yeah, they do face this problem.
Thank you, Mor. So we have our final question for today from Phyllis. It's a two-part question. So the first part is, are there any joint Jewish-Arab projects in the town? And then also, what can be done for establishing joint development?
So it depends how you would define Jewish-Arab. Well, because in Israel, it's a bit different than the US, right? The most of the state is Jewish. So even our collaboration is quite Jewish Arab. Most of us are Jews. Like we have some Arab students, but the Technion is not considered an Arabic, you know, institution. It's an Israeli institution, mostly adhere to the Jewish, you know, values and so on and so forth. But if you discuss something more like of JCC or MGSDII kind of projects, again, this is something which is not, it conceptualized a bit different in Israel. So we do have the Rothschild Foundation work there. And again, the Israeli Association for Higher Education, which fund some projects there. And in order to advance the initiatives, what we're attempt to do here, part of our project in MGSDII, is to make a collaboration between San Diego and Israel. And of course, it needs a lot of funding to bring students from here and to there and vice versa. If you have any advice, these are more than welcome, but this is something, of course, we are thinking of for the next year.
Well, once again, I want to say thank you so much to Dr. Mor Shilon. It has been such a treat to have you here, and again, to hear about the incredible work that you're doing. It's truly fascinating and I think incredibly significant. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you also to the MGSDII for bringing you to us and for our collaboration and partnership with them. That is also such a treat and we are very fortunate. And then I want to thank all of you for joining us today, again, either this morning or afternoon or evening. We are so grateful that you are here and that we are able to offer this lecture series in these uncertain times. And so if you are able to support the Mandelbaum Lecture Series, you can either do so by donating by check, or I will send out information about how to do so on our website as well, just to make sure that we are able to keep this lecture series going for the community. Your support is always so greatly appreciated. And then I want to just tell you about our next lecture of the series, which will be on Wednesday, February 10th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. We will be joined by Rebecca Moore, who will be speaking on the topic of a different look at Jewish and Christian relations. And you can register for that lecture at lfjcc.org/learning. Again, that's lfjcc.org/learning. And I will provide that in the follow-up email to this lecture, along with the recorded link for today's lecture. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Mor, and hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day or have a great rest of your week and weekend. Thank you so much. Hope to see you again in February.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.